welcome back. Now, tomorrow, Azimio La Umoja coalition will hold a major rally at the Kamukunji grounds. Now, this follows the passage of the Finance Bill 2023 last week, which was today signed into law by President William Ruto. The rally, according to Azimio, will be a consultation forum with Kenyans, where they will announce the next course of action. Now, in studio, I'm joined by Eric Mokono, a political analyst, to help us dissect the whole matter. Eric, welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Kennedy.
Now, last week you projected that the finance bill will pass. Actually, true to your words, the bill passed last week,
yes.
And today, President William Ruto assented, and it's now law. I mean, your reaction on that?
Kennedy, last week I told you that we are dealing with a set of parliamentarians that either do not know what they are doing, or probably if they know what they are doing, they do not really care for the real mwananchi or the common Kenyan. And clearly, last week we saw what happened. That they voted in a bill that is extremely oppressive. Now, let me just put it into perspective. During the campaigns trail, this government ran their campaigns on an agenda to lift Mama Mboga and the boda guys. And these are people who use the very basic commodity called fuel. Okay? Mm-hmm. And the president, during the presidential debate, he said that we need to rethink the taxation on fuel, mm-hmm. which was then at 8%. Fast forward, 1 year later, or about 11 months later, he sits down and thinks, I think my decision was foolish. We actually need to rethink this tax upwards from 8% to 16%. What this means that the cost of production of basic commodities goes up. The cost of manufacturing goes up. The cost of operations in our households goes up. So in an already overburdened Kenyan, who we call, who in this case, we can simply say punda amechoka, you know?
But you see, at the same time, mm-hmm. As a nation, mm-hmm. we've really been in debt. Mm-hmm. And you can see the president saying that you're not going to borrow more. Mm-hmm. You're going to actually get money from taxing people. I guess that's the route that the president is taking right now.
But how do you get money from taking away money from people? Who's going to get motivated? I am not even motivated to continue working, honestly, because if I am working for the government and we're getting to a point where we are now going to tell the government, now take our salaries, give us back the taxes. Yeah. Because we're almost getting into a very bad place. We're getting into a very bad circle.
Okay. Let's shift gears from that. Mm-hmm. Away from the finance bill, mm-hmm. The president today signed the finance bill 2023.
Yes.
And apart from that, we saw the president also saying that he is now proposing the NHIF bill proposal, whereby Kenyans will have to be taxed 2.75% of their gross salaries.
Mm-hmm, true.
I mean, we've not yet healed from the finance bill.
Yes.
There's this NHIF bill.
I can see, Ken, you're feeling it. Now that you say we have not healed it clearly. Now, Ken, 3 things happened today. The president signed into law the finance bill.
Correct.
And then above that, he says that apart from the taxes I have proposed or I have signed into law in this finance bill, I want to add you some additional contribution in terms of 2.75% from your gross salary. Mm-hmm. And as if that is not enough, he continues to threaten anyone who's going to protest against his decision. I mean, we are in a very interesting country that some of us will be going to Kamukunji tomorrow to protest against some of these decisions. Then we are in a very bad position. But away from that, Ken, last week we had a mega scandal on NHIF and how NHIF has been losing money. And the CEO of NHIF, Peter Munyao or something like that, says that in 1 year, NHIF loses around 10 billion shillings. This comes from the CEO himself, somebody who we have entrusted our monies with, that they will be used appropriately and not embezzled. But then he comes on media and says that per year, NHIF, or the organization that I lead, loses 10 billion. Now, the president, on the other hand, comes and tells us, now, we want you to give us 2.75% of your gross salary so that we can continue stealing from you. I mean, if we cannot see the value of the money we are giving you right now, then I do not think, honestly, it is wise for you to continue taxing us more. I mean, we have not seen the value. The healthcare situation is in this country is extremely bad. You know what is happening at KEMSA right now. I mean, we have a very deplorable state of healthcare, and we are not actually refusing to pay some of these things, Ken. I would be so glad to pay the 2.75% without an issue. But the problem is, I am not getting the value for my money. If I go to some of these hospitals, there are no medicine. There's no medicine. You know, the state of some of these hospitals are wanting.
Yeah.
It's sorry to say, one of the days, a few years back, I went to see a friend at Kenyatta National Hospital, and was in one of the wards, and I went in and went out because the state in there was deplorable, you know. And I am trying to think, at least for some of us who probably God has blessed with employment or something, we're able to go to private hospitals. But what happens to a common mwananchi who is totally dependent on NHIF to fund their health care? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, we need to get value for whatever we are giving to the government. So if we get the value, then we have no problem. If our doctors are paid, we get better infrastructure in our hospitals, we get medicine, and North Heart and the state of our healthcare is good, then we have no problem paying the 2.75%. But right now, as it is, Ken, we cannot afford to trust the government or the NHIF with our monies, because we cannot see the value.
Well, the NHIF, it's actually a proposal. Do you think it's going to see the light of day?
Now, they told us on the finance bill that either we like it or we like it, it's going to pass, you know?
So the same thing is going to happen?
The same thing is going to, you know, it starts like a joke. Let me tell you what happened with this housing levy. It started with, we're going to place it on government employees, you know. It started just like, and then they tried to weigh the reaction of Kenyans, and then they said, oh, they have not complained, then we can bring it to everyone. We can now bring it to Ken, we can bring it to somebody else, and that's how they're going to start. And at the end of the day, probably by the end of the year, we will have a very heated exchange here on this 2.75%.
All right, let's switch gears to the finance bill. We have seen the opposition saying that they will go to the courts to protest against this. Is this the solution now that the bill has already been assented?
You know, Ken, I have been wondering who goes for maandamano. I have been wondering who has the time to go out there and protest and raise placards. Now, is it not that my boss expects me at work tomorrow? I would actually join Raila Odinga from JKIA to Kamukonji. And my boss, I hope he doesn't get to hear this. I am very committed to... but the finance bill has already passed.
Yeah.
And there's probably nothing much we can do about it. And at least if we cannot, if now that there's nothing we can do, at least our voices can be heard. Yeah. Our voices can be heard. And of course, the opposition going out there and having those masses and affirming that it's okay, you have passed this thing. You know, you said you're going to pass it, and somehow you have passed it. You know, you refuse to listen to the view of Kenyans whom the majority were against some clauses within the finance bill. But this is what is going to happen tomorrow, Ken. And they said that the majority had their way.
Well, just before we go about tomorrow, my director, Shalene, can kindly play for us the clip where Mother Karua was actually talking about the protests that are going to happen this week. If my director, Shalene, can kindly play the clip. Our director to play the clip. We are seeing of the demonstrations, because actually tomorrow is not a demonstration, it's actually a rally.
It's actually a rally demonstrations. So in the we are going to see a resumption of the demonstrations, and I honestly, for me, this is a good way to. It may not help as much, but I believe it's a good way for Kenyans to air their grievances. The Constitution in Article 37 gives us the right for us to demonstrate and picket, of course, peacefully. Yeah. And going forward, I think it's a good way for Kenyans to air their views. Yeah. And to also hold the government accountable and to let them know that whatever they are doing is not the right thing. You know, I was telling you earlier that in Parliament the minority had their say, but the majority had their way.
Well, before we continue, I want us to just see the reaction from Mother Karua. Actually, last week she said that they are going to protest, not actually protest, but to have a demonstration tomorrow. If my director, Shalene, can actually play the clip so that you can be able to listen to that.
We have decided to invite Kenyans to a consultation at the Kamukuji grounds next Tuesday, the 27th of June at 10 a.m., where the next course of action will be decided.
Even as you correct the wrongs that are there, even as you point out what you think should be done better, we must always have in our mind not to sabotage our country, to be able to work in such a manner that we take the country forward.
Nataka tuseme asanti, mlitusaidia kwa uongozi. Wale walishindwa na wamesema watarudi kwa barabara siku ya Jumanne, tumewakaribisha. Hakuna shida. Si barabara ziko tu, kuna bahali zimeenda. Kuna bahali zimeenda. Bora tu wasiharibu mali ya Mkenya. Hiyo tu. Hiyo no go zone. Weka sufuria kwa kichwa, piga kelele, muende nyumbani jioni. Lakini mali ya Mkenya, hapana, hiyo haiwezekani.
Therefore, the priority we have as we speak is to ensure that this government that came to power using unorthodox means is sent home the soonest possible.
We in Azimio, we in ODM, fought it as much as we could at every stage. At the first reading, we fought it. At the second reading, we spoke against it. At the third reading, we voted 6 times against it.
We have decided to invite Kenyans to a consultation at the Kamukuji grounds next Tuesday, the 27th of June at 10 a.m., where the next course of action will be decided.
Even as you correct the wrongs that are there, even as you point out what you think should be done better, we must always have in our mind not to sabotage our country, to be able to work in such a manner that we take the country forward.
Nataka tuseme asanti, mlitusaidia kwa uongozi. Wale walishindwa na wamesema watarudi kwa barabara siku ya Jumanne, tumewakaribisha. Hakuna shida. Si barabara ziko tu, kuna bahali zimeenda. Kuna bahali zimeenda. Bora tu wasiharibu mali ya Mkenya. Hiyo tu. Hiyo no go zone. Weka sufuria kwa kichwa, piga kelele, muende nyumbani jioni. Lakini mali ya Mkenya, hapana, hiyo haiwezekani.
Therefore, the priority we have as we speak is to ensure that this government that came to power using unorthodox means is sent home the soonest possible.
We in Azimio, we in ODM fought it as much as we could at every stage. At the first reading, we fought it. At the second reading, we spoke against it. At the third reading, we voted 6 times against it.
Well, from the reactions from Azimio and the government side, that is Kenya Kwanza, I mean, what can you tell of this whole issue of finance bill, rally, demonstrations? What is it signaling?
Looking at the history of this country, we have a very dishonest political class. Very dishonest political class. I mean, this is a government that ran under the Mama Mboga and the common mwananchi narrative, that they wanted to protect the interest of the common mwananchi. You know, they wanted to make sure that the common mwananchi has money in their pocket. You know, that the cost of living for the common mwananchi the cost of living is bearable, you know, and that they would bring everything to a place where you and I and somebody else who's down there at the pyramid can afford. But what are we seeing now? We have a government that is trying, that is, we can say this is a government for the rich, you know. They are taxing us right, left and center. But as I was telling you, going back to the demonstrations that will be there tomorrow, they had their way in parliament. But tomorrow is an opportunity to have the common mwananchi heard. Even if nothing is done, at least someday and at some point, not so far away from now, Kennedy, we are going to hold these people accountable for some of the things they are doing now. And I can promise you, I'll also be on the front line of holding them accountable. And I pray that as an electorate, we are going to get somewhere where we are going to take an account of where each and every member of parliament has done in the 5 years that we've given them an opportunity to do in parliament.
But actually, do you think these demonstrations are actually paying off? Because we've witnessed running battles with the police, you know, wananchi being tear gassed, businesses closing. Is it doing more harm than good having these demonstrations?
Of course, the whole point is we're looking at it from a point of we would want peaceful demonstrations, but then with having some characters, and sorry to say, even in government, some of the things that we get to see and some of the distractions you get to see, it's unfortunate even to say that they are government-sponsored protests. Now, a while ago when we had Maandamano in these protests... What do you mean
say government-sponsored protests?
Yeah, they are government. Let me explain that to you and let me put it into perspective in a way that everyone is able to relate. Now, when we had protests back in I think May or March around there against some of the things that Azimio had raised, we saw an attack on Northlands along the Ruiru bypass, and we had a whole set of we had clips showing how that whole destruction of that farm and the burning of that farm was orchestrated and how it was planned. And it is unfortunate that the majority leader in parliament, and it is on record, him saying that if the former president continues to sponsor protests, which we are not really, we cannot confirm that he does sponsor these protests, then if he's sponsoring the destruction of property, then we are also going to have his property destroyed. You know, that's a statement from a very high-profile leader. So that shows that even in the midst of in the cause of protest, we have government is also trying to plan some destructions, and we could see the same probably tomorrow. What Azimio has planned is an escort of not really they are not we, but they are just escorting Raila Odinga from JKIA to Kamukunji. But in the middle of things, we'll have a few people who are not of goodwill to Kenyans and to what Azimio will be doing of standing with the common mwananchi, and they will try to taint the name of the people who are trying to stand with Kenyans. Now, by saying this, I am not trying to stand in one side of the divide. I am a very neutral Kenyan, but we got duped into voting for this government, I must say. And
actually, one of the newspaper headlines, Taifa Leo, the headline was actually Raia Walilia Raila. Do you think now the opposition is the only voice left for Wanjiku?
I think that is the only voice that is left for Wanjiku, because even if it is for personal interest, they may not really be true to what to the cause, to whatever they are doing. At least, but at least they are helping the common mwananchi air his views, and we will be heard. We will be heard. And I'm telling you, Ken, 4 years down the line, we will hold these people accountable. We must hold these people accountable. We must bring this to an end where we are electing leaders for their own self-interest, you know, because you have been promised something by the government in hand, then you go in and vote in whatever the government of the day. We must at some point hold this government accountable, and we will remember. We will remember, and I hope Kenyans learn that when in a few years we buy a loaf of bread at 100 shillings, we have to remember that some people or somebody got us where we are, and we have to act.
Yeah, but on the flip side, the government is actually doing as much as it can to make the country debt-free, as they say.
But you know, whatever is happening, Ken, as you try to get the government debt-free, is you're taking away the disposable income of Kenyans. But looking at it, is it really true that they are trying to get to operate debt-free?
Is it?
I do not think it's true, because recently, actually, sometime last week, Azimio released a letter demanding some answers to a loan that has been taken by the government from local banks, you know. So we're really not operating debt-free. Actually, looking at this government now and the amount of money it has borrowed, and compare it to Uhuru's government last year time like this, or in 2013 when they came into power, a period like this government has actually borrowed more. So they're just trying to play with the minds of Kenyans and trying to tell them that we're trying to tax ourselves into being independent. You know, it's just conmanship. They're just trying to con us around. So there's really nothing about them trying to get us debt free.
Yeah, as you conclude, do you think next Monday we are going to witness tear gas Mondays from next Monday moving forward?
It's not my prayer that we get to the point of tear gas Mondays. I am looking forward. I am very optimistic of peaceful protests. I do not
They
wish
peaceful,
to.
really?
Yeah. There are just a few elements that we need to control, that the government needs to control. But really, they're usually they're just peaceful protests. From how they are organized, they are peaceful
Okay,
protests.
next Monday you'll be on this desk. We are going to discuss about it and actually see if the protests were actually peaceful or not.
They will be very peaceful, and if probably I get a chance, I will also be there, also preaching peace and making sure that everyone is around me is peaceful.
All right, thank you so much, Eric, for your time.
Thank you.
That has been Eric Mukono, an economist and also a political analyst who helped us dissect this whole matter. Now, with that, we take a short commercial break, but we'll be back with the business and sports news.